all non-alcoholic.
Wow. A girl's sitting on his hand above his head, and he's just sort of, you know.
This is a big step for an industry that kind of lacked its sobriety in a lot of ways.
3 times. Woo! That one's got a little life to it. I now have a better understanding of why I was born in the first place.
A big thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible.
This is the Fred Minnick Show, and I'm absolutely honored to have an American hero on the show, Olympic gold medalist, Scott Hamilton.
Thank you.
My wife and I, we love ice skating, and you are, in our home, you are a god.
Oh, wow.
It is such an honor to have you.
You're so kind.
Here.
It's just the whole journey. I look back on it all the time because now I'm in my sort of autumn. And it's like, wow, how did that happen? It's just the wildest thing when you connect the dots, and it's like, thank you. You know, it's been an amazing experience, and one that I probably would never have thought to dream.
Well, I wanted to make something that I considered special for you being here on the show.
Oh, fun.
And I don't know if it was an interview or if it was a segment where you said you like the smell of rosemary. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it rings a bell. I love to smell things. I can't imbibe at all anymore because of medical stuff, but I love to smell, especially a really good red wine or something. I like to smell. And even, you know, certain bourbons, you know, it's like, ooh, it feels nice, but I can't touch it because of just medical stuff. But it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to listen to your expertise. So it's very thoughtful of you to go non-alcoholic for me.
So we're all non-alcoholic.
Has that ever happened before?
Yes. And then I pulled the episode because
it wasn't
non-alcoholic enough.
So none of you may ever see this.
So I made you a cocktail, or I'm sorry, a mocktail using Kentucky 74, a spiritless bourbon, and I used honey and lemon juice, and then put this little rosemary in here. We got a dried orange, a smoked dry orange here. So this is just, this is like having a juice. So cheers.
Cheers, it looks good. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness.
Thank you for coming on.
Wow, it's very nice.
My hope was that it would be refreshing. It's a combination of like 2 of my favorite cocktails. When it comes to the alcohol world, honey and lemon really go great with bourbon. It's a perfect combo with the spiritless route. And the whole mocktail culture really has been influenced by the bartending community that doesn't want to drink as much anymore. But you can't drink for an entirely different reason. In
2004, I was diagnosed with a pituitary brain tumor. And so the best course of action back then was gamma knife radiation. And so it's right here. And so they came in from 201 points of like, there was a helmet that they put a frame on, like if you have like a skull fracture, the frame that they screw into your head. So they just screw it into my head. And then they put a helmet on, they put you in a machine, and then they do all these crazy things. And there was 26 shots, 201 holes in the helmet, and it just all culminates on the tumor, and it knocks it out. But as in any radiation experience, there's collateral damage. And so part of that gave me a condition called diabetes insipidus. When I'm on the medication to control that, everything kind of stays in. So if I take in any alcohol, my body doesn't break it down normally. And so like one beverage becomes like 4 or 5, and then I can't sleep. And then from 4 to 6 in the morning, I'll go into a deep sleep, and then I'll wake up with the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. So I'm honored that you would consider having me on your show when I am physically unable to participate. Well, but this is a great educational tool too for people that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But when my team said, you know, Scott Hamilton wants to come on the show, I was like, what? And they're like, but he doesn't drink. I was like, it doesn't matter.
That's great.
I'll do a mocktail.
Yeah.
I'll drink water.
This is good. I want another sip. This is really good.
But you are genuinely, I consider you one of the great American heroes.
Oh, thank you.
I'd put you up there with anybody in sports for what you did, in a sport where we never got respect.
When I had my run from like 80 to 84, and I started to kind of gain some familiarity, I went to the Olympics, and every time I talked to anybody from the media, they said, you're the only real sure thing here at this Olympics. And if you don't win, it's going to be really embarrassing for our country. So note to self, avoid the media at all costs until it's over. But it was amateur, so I had to turn professional because I was living in my best friend's parents' basement. He was off at college and law school, and I was living with his family in his room in their house, and I was broke at 25 years old, so I had to turn professional. In that, you know, began this really adventure big adventure of how to create an audience for male figure skating. Was very low on the totem pole. The women like Dorothy Hamill, Peggy Fleming, Janet Lynn, all these, Sonia Henney, you know, they were the kind of the focal point of the sport. So coming in as an Olympic champion man to build a professional career, it was one of those things of, you know, the ice capades when I joined with them, had no idea what to do with me. And so we sort of kept trying to figure out ways of doing what the audience would expect. And so I worked very hard at it. Was with them for 2 years, and then the new owner of the show said, I don't want any men, get rid of them all. So I was let go, and then I was given an opportunity to just form a tour called Stars on Ice. But in all of that, I had to figure out how to build an audience. Are you a music fan?
Huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had 3 guys that were my guiding lights. They were my heroes. First one was Bruce Springsteen. It was that blue-collar attitude of building an audience. The second one was Neil Diamond.
Okay.
Have you ever been to a Neil Diamond show?
No, I haven't, but I love listening to his music.
His live shows, the joy just emits from the stage. So I figured if I was blue collar and I could show a lot of joy from the stage, maybe. And then the third one was Robert Plant. He is all about experimentation, trying new rhythms and sounds and being versatile. So I figured if I can do that somehow and then win over the most underserved person in all of figure skating, if I can win that audience over, then I could probably skate forever. And that was men.
Yeah.
And so every year I try to figure out ways of really trying to build the male audience and try to make it okay for guys to be at these ice shows.
I guess I don't have any issues liking, you know, figure skating.
Yeah.
I look at it as the most incredible gymnastics, you know, control of the body. In pair skating, like I don't even know how they hold people up.
It's one of those things where when you see it right in front of you and you hear the force of the blade cutting the ice, and you see the explosive nature of these jumps, and when you see the amount of ice that's covered in the air, and when you just see the speed and the power in it, it's different.
Yeah.
And a lot of people only see skating on TV, but when you go to see it live, it's completely different, especially as you're saying the pair skating. Yeah. You've got a guy, and a girl sitting on his hand above his head, and he's just sort of, you know, or he's throwing her across the ice, and she's rotating 3 times around in the air, and then finding a way to time the landing. And then you look at some of the choreographic elements and the ice dancing and everything else, and you just get mesmerized. And it's so beautiful, and it's fun. It suspends time. I wish there were more opportunities for people to see skating in that form, because it's the one thing you can do with your entire family and enjoy it equally.
If you're like me and you're tired of walking into stores and seeing bourbon being overpriced and then going online and seeing it extraordinarily overpriced, if you can find the bottle in the first place, you know, it's probably time to find a new place, a new marketplace to go and find bourbon that, you know, is affordable and rare bottles that are available. And that's why I go to BAXUS, that's BAXUS.co, where you can see how a bottle has been selling. You got absolute price transparency. It's just like me selling to you, because it's actual real collectors selling bottles on BAXUS. So go check out BAXUS.co. They are the presenting sponsor of the Fred Minnick Show, so go check them out. One thing I've wondered about skating is, like, if it got implemented into the school system, like, you know, say baseball or tennis, you know, could we see more success out of the United States?
The only reason I ever started skating was because Bowling Green State University, they wanted to build an ice skating center for hockey and PE classes for their students. And so they built this rink. And every Saturday morning from 8 to noon, they'd open it up to the kids in the city. And there would be public sessions and things like that. But they started at the very basic skills of just introducing Learn to Skate to our community. And first day I went, there was like 140 kids there.
Wow.
And it was like, this is going to be so much fun. And I just realized, because I was very sick back then, and I spent a lot of time in hospitals. When I got on the ice, I realized that literally I was on equal footing with the well kids and with the best athletes in my grade. And it just gave me that first little taste of self-esteem. Because I was always the short est, the weak est, the little est, and the sick est. I was always kind of the est guy. And it was remarkable that when I found skating, it was like, I can do this with anybody. And so I just became a skater, all because the university built a skating rink. And what's really wild is, are you familiar at all with the Mid-American Conference?
Oh, yeah, the MAC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the history of the MAC, only one school ever has won a Division I NCAA title, hockey, Bowling Green, 1984. I won the Olympics in '84, having started skating in that rink.
Yeah.
Hockey team wins '84 NCAA, and the high school won their first state championship that year.
Wow.
So it's kind of one of those, build it and they will come. Build it and they will come.
All glassware for the Fred Minnick Show was given to us by Whiskey, including the cocktail glasses and the tasting glasses. You can get your own. Go to Whiskey.com. That's VISKI.com. Enter Fred20. That's Fred20 at checkout to get 20% off of your Whiskey glass. Cheers.
So, you mentioned some of the childhood sickness, but you're always coming out on the other end so cheerful and happy, incredible.
It's a choice.
Guiding. Like, I was going to ask you, like, how do you do that? So many of us, like, we face an adversity, and you know what? It's easy to fall down the well of negativity and be like, you know what? I give up. How do you keep on?
I wrote a book. Shameless plug, called Finish First. I was working with this author, and helped me organize everything and get it grammatically correct. And her name is Allie Fallon. She's brilliant. And we're sitting there talking one time about failure. And she goes, "How many times do you think you've fallen down on the ice?" And I thought, that nobody's really asked me that question before. A lot. Didn't answer the question. So I went back and I thought, okay, 16 years, 20 years of pro, and then I did this. And I was on the ice many times, that many hours, this freestyle, and then I did 41,600 times I've fallen on the ice, minimum. And so you asked me about adversity, right? So when you fail that many times, painfully, in some respects, in a humiliating fashion, falling in front of millions of people, like on a TV show or something, and you get up, that fall takes on less and less identity. Mm-hmm. So when you fall down 41,600 times, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But when you get up 41,600 times, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And the getting up becomes more of the focus than the fall itself. My first nationals, I fell 5 times in front of 17,000 people and came in dead last. Next year, pretty close to that, next to last. And so, failure was always kind of something to be endured. And then once you fail enough, you kind of figure out 2 things. One, okay, I'm still here. It's like, and 2, it's like, what is failure? And out of adversity, there's the fear of failure, right? So failure, I figured out, is how many ingredients do you think is in this bourbon right here?
There's a few, yeah.
How many ingredients are there in failure?
Oh boy. 1.
Information.
Okay.
Didn't work. Try it again, another way. So a lot of people, and I was one of these guys, I would take all my failures and I'd stick them in a bag and I'd carry it around with me, and that's human nature. Like, we fail, it leaves kind of a mark on us, and we go, oh, ugh.
Yeah.
And we're like, but now I look back on those failures as kind of like, oh, that was really important. That was really good, because it set me up for this and it allowed me to understand that. And so if you can look at failure as 100% information, then you kind of give yourself permission to drop the bag and just live light. We can't go back and fix any of those things.
Right.
But we can move forward in a way of understanding kind of the power of that moment, whatever it was, and what we've learned for it and how we can rise above it. So adversity is so important. We need resistance. We need that whole idea of that we have to push back against things in order to be strong.
Yeah.
And without it, we just fall over. And we don't have anything to hold us up.
It is funny, like you brought up men being afraid of watching skating. I'm like, I would put skating up there as one of the top 5 toughest sports.
Oh, it's insane.
Because you have to sprint on the ice, which is incredibly hard, with actual, like, much more difficult skates than hockey skates. You have to be able to turn on a dime. You get judged for everything. And somewhere is a Russian coach who's breaking you apart, and you're like, you can't understand him. And I just love the culture of skating.
Well, it's fun because there's always kind of like, it's good against evil. We always had that villain, right, which was the Russian coach or the judge or whatever. And it's funny because, when you step away from the competition, we all get along really well. Like when we do our big event here at Bridgestone Arena in November, Katia Gordieva has come to every single, I've done 20, this will be my 29th fundraising show I've done for cancer, and she's been in every single one of them. She's the only one. She's coming again with her daughter, and last year she skated with her husband, and it's amazing to see what was always sort of thought to be, you don't mix and mingle with the Russians. And so many have become my dearest friends. But the good against evil thing is really fun.
That was especially in your time, and this is a weird jump, but very similar for me. The non-alcoholic space in bourbon, I was very much like told I was supposed to be against it, shouldn't like it because bourbon is bourbon. I started looking at people in the industry as like, some people probably should take a break, and they still want to be able to go out with their friends and drink something. And it's like this world right here is like saving the industry in a lot of ways. So we're going to taste this one here. This is the this is the equivalent of like a bourbon, but it's non-alcoholic. This is a big step for an industry that kind of laughed at sobriety in a lot of ways in the last 20 years. Oh. Cheers.
Cheers. That's really nice. It's very smooth. It's really light.
But it also doesn't just taste like it's water.
No, it's very smooth. It's very pleasant. I really like that. It's really good.
So the Scott Hamilton Cares Foundation is so important. Can you tell me about the experiences that you had that led up to it and why you started it?
When I was a junior in high school, my mom came home with the news that, very cheerful, hey everybody, I'm family meeting. I've just been diagnosed with a disease called cancer. I was like, why is she so happy? And it was what she was acting, because she knew everything about raising a family, and she didn't want us to be scared or she had to share it with us because she didn't want to keep us in the dark, but at the same time, she didn't want us to be like thinking that this is something horrible, even though it ended up being something terrible. So she had no chance at all. Like there was nothing that they could give her that would allow her to rise above her cancers. They hit it with everything they could for about 2 years, and then she succumbed. And I remember the morning we lost her, and she, just for the sake of context, she was the person on this planet I loved the most. And so the morning she left us, my brother-in-law woke me up, and all he said to me was, "Your mother is gone." And all I could think to say is, "I know." So I went for a walk, and I decided that I wasn't going to be the loser that she saw skate in the last competition she saw me skate in, which I was a disaster. So I was going to take her with me to the ice every single day, and that way I feel like I was mourning her in a really positive way. And the next year I was on the podium at the Nationals in the championship men division, and I was ranked 11th in the world. And these are all things that my mother dreamed about, but I showed absolutely no signs of them ever happening.
Yeah.
But I started thinking if I could raise enough money to fund a research project that would cure her cancer, then I'd know why I was born. You know, because I was adopted at 6 weeks of age, and you know, there's a lot of things. So I just started raising money for cancer. Wherever I could, I would do shows, and we'd raise money for cancer research. And then it was 20 years, 2 months shy of the 20th anniversary of losing her, that now I'm in a doctor's office being diagnosed with cancer. For me, there was an 80 to 90% chance that I was going to survive because of research. I have to pay attention because I'm going through chemo and a large surgery. And so in that, I just sort of, why don't I understand my condition? Well, note to self, fix that. All right. Why don't I understand the things I'm reading on Dr. Google, you know, because they're 12-syllable words? Well, you got to fix that. And so we started, in my survivorship, we started CARES, which is the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, and Survivorship. In the beginning, we looked after education with a mentorship program where we put newly diagnosed patients with survivors so they could work as life coaches and mentors. And then we built a website called chemocare.com that explains everything about chemotherapy, how it's administered, every drug listed, how it works, associated with all of the side effects of that drug and how to manage them. So people can now take charge of their journey without it being a step in the dark. Once those things were accomplished, we became an independent foundation that only funds research for immunotherapy. And 3 years ago, we got an RFP for a research project for the cancer that my mom had, immunotherapy. And so we funded it. And on the anniversary of my 40th anniversary of my Olympic gold medal last February, I've got my silver medalist Brian Orster to my left, and I've got Joseph Bobchik, the bronze medalist, to my right. We're celebrating this night together because we were really good friends. And I was able to announce that that research program went into clinical trial.
That's awesome.
So if it continues through and it's actually a proven treatment for the disease that killed my mom, 47 years later, I now have a better understanding of why I was born in the first place.
That's amazing. And there's people watching now that can help and chip in. You've got an event coming up. Scott Hamilton and friends.
Yeah, Bridgestone Arena. We're doing a Christmas spectacular this year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which has made it a little harder, you know, because it's specific, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to add different textures and rhythms and styles and all these things just to keep that show really interesting and all over the map, because we've got a lot of skaters coming in that are really diverse in their talents, and they all have different strengths, and it's really fun to be able to cater to their strengths and put on a show that only we can do, you know, with live music from, you know, CeCe Winans and Stephen Curtis Chapman, Jason Urlacher from Journey, Chip Eston, the Isaacs. It's going to be a really big, fun night of live music and some of the greatest skaters you'll ever see.
Go have your pre-turkey, your pre-turkey like skate-a-thon, and then the next week, you know.
Yeah. Everybody that goes, I try to tell them what it is, and they'll come to me after the show and they go, "Why didn't you tell me? This was unbelievable." And it's like, I did tell you, but it has to be experienced to be understood. Skating has got to get, you know, we got to get out ahead of it and tell people how awesome it is. I can't skate. I think that's why. I don't anymore. Well, I think you had your moment, you know. I did have a lot of moments. You had your moment or two. But I can't, like, you see me on the ice, I'm falling over like Humpty Dumpty. I'm in absolute awe of all the athletes. It's beautiful. And the skating community is really rich. They've got so many great personalities and so many unbelievable talents. Question for you. Yes, sir. Ice and bourbon. Yeah. For it or against it? Oh, I'm all for it in certain scenarios. Yeah, but if I'm being analytical, no ice. No ice. Unless it comes off of a skater's. You know. I don't think I'd put that in my mouth. It's so awesome having you on. I mean it. You're an American hero. You have no idea like what you mean to me and so many others. Oh, thank you so much. Man. And this is, what's this one now? This is the cinnamon one. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. So, cheers. Thank you so much for coming on, brother. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Great getting to know you. Oh, man. It smells good.